At my sister's engagement party, my mom shouted across the room, "You're just envious of her success." Everyone froze, and all I could do was stare at her with a champagne glass trembling in my hand. Stay with me for a moment, because what happened that night changed the way I looked at family, love, and self-worth forever. The music stopped for a few seconds after her words echoed through the hall. I could feel every pair of eyes on me, friends, relatives, even Zola's fiancé, Elliot, pretending to sip his drink like nothing happened. My mom, Claudia, stood there with that same disappointed look she'd worn my entire life, as if I'd just ruined her big moment. I wanted to disappear. My throat tightened, but I forced a smile and whispered, "It's fine, Mom," even though my hands were shaking so badly the glass nearly slipped. Zola, my younger sister, smirked from across the room, holding Elliot's hand like a trophy. She didn't even try to defend me, she never did. I excused myself quietly and stepped outside into the cool evening air. The laughter and music behind me faded as I stood on the hotel balcony, staring at the city lights. My reflection in the glass looked like a stranger, the quiet, responsible daughter who always tried to please everyone but never seemed to be enough. For years, I had supported Zola. I helped her with college applications, job interviews, even loaned her money when she was struggling. But somehow, in my mother's eyes, Zola was the shining star, and I was the shadow that followed behind her. Inside, I could still hear my mom laughing again, pretending nothing had happened. Guests were probably whispering, "Poor Amara," while Zola soaked in the attention. It wasn't just embarrassment, it was betrayal. The kind that burns deeper than any insult. I pulled out my phone and stared at my father's old number, even though he'd been gone for years. He was the only one who ever saw me, really saw me. The thought made my eyes sting. I whispered to myself, "Dad, if you can see this, I hope you're proud of me. Because I'm done trying to earn their love." When I finally walked back into the hall to grab my coat, Zola's friends were laughing near the dessert table. One of them said, "Guess jealousy runs deep." I didn't say a word. I just smiled, not the sad, polite smile they were used to, but a cold, steady one. That was the moment I decided I would never let them make me feel small again. They thought they had humiliated me, but all they did was wake me up. I left that party quietly, heels clicking against the marble floor, my heart heavy but clear. They had no idea that night was the beginning of their own unraveling, and my freedom. Growing up, it was always clear who the favorite was. My sister Zola could do no wrong in my mother's eyes. If she smiled, Mom said she lit up the whole room. If she threw a tantrum, Mom called her spirited. But when I cried, I was told to toughen up. When I achieved something, it was met with silence or a sigh that said, "You could have done better." I was the quiet one, the reader, the girl who loved numbers and books more than gossip and glitter. Zola, on the other hand, had charm in her blood. She could lie and make it sound like poetry. She could break something and still be called my sweet girl. I used to think it was my fault, that maybe if I smiled more, dressed differently, or tried harder, my mother would look at me the way she looked at Zola. Our father, Jonas, was the only one who saw the difference. He'd slip me small notes after dinner saying, "You're doing great, my little accountant." He'd help me with homework late into the night, even when he was tired from work. When Mom scolded me for being too serious, he'd say, "That's how strong women are built." For a while, his love balanced out everything. But the day he died, everything changed. It was sudden, a heart attack on a rainy afternoon. I remember standing at his funeral beside Mom and Zola, feeling like the ground had been pulled out from under me. Mom cried loudly, clutching Zola, while I stood frozen, my tears silent. That night, when I tried to talk about him, Mom snapped, "Stop making this about you. Your sister lost her father too." From then on, the house didn't feel like home. It felt like a stage where I was always the wrong character. Zola became the center of every conversation, her grades, her beauty, her friends. When she got a part-time job at a boutique, Mom bragged to everyone about her hard-working little girl. When I got a scholarship, Mom said, "Well, at least that saves us some money." I learned to keep my pride tucked deep inside, to celebrate my own wins quietly. Zola, meanwhile, learned that charm could buy her anything: attention, affection, forgiveness. She'd mess up, and I'd be the one helping her clean the mess. And Mom would pat her head and say, "See, Amara is lucky to have you as a sister." Sometimes, late at night, I'd look at old photos of us, Zola smiling wide, me standing beside her, hands clasped awkwardly. Even then, I could see it in our faces. She was the sun and I was the shadow. But shadows have patience. They wait until the sun sets. And deep down, I knew that one day, Mom's golden child would show her true colors. And when that day came, I wouldn't be the one standing in her light anymore. Zola always knew how to make her life look perfect. By the time we were adults, she was living in Atlanta, working as a PR executive, attending fancy events, and posting filtered photos that made her world look like a dream. Her captions were always something like grateful for growth or winning season. And Mom would share every post, bragging about her successful daughter. Meanwhile, I was living quietly in a small apartment, working long hours as an accountant. My life wasn't glamorous, but it was stable. I paid my bills, minded my business, and tried not to compare myself. Still, every time Mom called, her words were like small cuts. You could learn a thing or two from your sister. I'd just smile through the phone and say, I'm proud of her, Mom. And I meant it, or at least I thought I did. When Zola called to tell me she was engaged, she sounded like she was floating. His name is Elliot King, she said. You're going to love him. He's everything I prayed for. I congratulated her, genuinely happy at first. Maybe she had finally found real love. But when I met him, something inside me twisted. Elliot looked familiar. Not his face, but his gestures, his voice, even the way he laughed. At dinner, he wore a gold watch that caught the light. My stomach dropped. It was the same watch I'd given to my ex-boyfriend, Malik, for his graduation years ago. I remembered saving for months to buy it, remembering the tiny scratch on the clasp. I saw that same scratch on Elliot's wrist when he reached for his wine glass. For the rest of the evening, my mind wasn't in the conversation. Zola talked about their future home, the wedding plans, the perfect love story, and I just nodded, pretending to smile. Inside, I was replaying everything. Malik disappearing without a word 5 years ago, my unanswered messages, the heartbreak I never really healed from. Could Elliot King really be Malik? The thought made me nauseous. That night, I couldn't sleep. I searched his name online, nothing suspicious. His LinkedIn looked polished, his photos clean, his background flawless. But deep down I knew. There was something in the way he avoided my eyes, how he hesitated before shaking my hand. My chest tightened with every memory of Malik's lies. I didn't tell anyone what I suspected. I just watched. When Zola posted a photo of them on a yacht with the caption, "Forever Mine," I stared at the screen for a long time. The same hand, the same watch, the same smirk. My mother called that evening, bragging again about Zola's good catch. I stayed silent, my fingers trembling around the phone. I wanted to scream the truth, but I didn't have proof, not yet. All I knew was that something was terribly wrong. The golden child had built her perfect world, but I could already see the cracks forming beneath the surface. The truth came to me in pieces, like fragments of a puzzle I didn't want to solve. Every time I saw Elliot, something in me screamed that he wasn't who he said he was. His smile, his laugh, even the way he rolled his sleeves, it all belonged to Malik. I tried to convince myself I was imagining it, that grief and jealousy were twisting my memory. But the moment I saw the small scar near his wrist, the one Malik got when he cut himself cooking dinner years ago, the illusion shattered. Elliot King was Malik, the man who disappeared from my life without a word, now standing proudly beside my sister, ready to marry her. I felt sick. For days, I replayed everything. How he'd ghosted me after promising forever, how I spent nights crying, wondering what I'd done wrong. And now here he was, smiling like the past never existed. I needed answers, and I thought my mother would understand. I thought maybe she'd comfort me, tell me this was some twisted coincidence. So I went to her house one evening, my hands trembling as I told her what I'd discovered. "Mom," I whispered, my voice breaking. "Elliot is Malik. He's my ex. He lied about who he is, and now he's marrying Zola. You can't let this happen." She didn't even look surprised. She just sighed, setting her teacup down slowly, as if I were talking about something trivial. "Amara," she said in that tired tone she always used with me, "don't ruin your sister's happiness just because a man chose her over you." The words hit me like a slap. "What do you mean, chose her over me? You knew." She looked me dead in the eyes. Of course I knew. Malik came to me years ago, said he wanted to move on, and I told him that was his choice. Zola met him again later, and they fell in love. What's done is done. Don't make a scene. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My own mother had known the truth and kept it from me. She had let me come face to face with the man who broke me. And worse, she had helped him step into my sister's life like I never existed. "You protected them," I whispered, tears burning my eyes. "You always protect them." Enough, Amara, she snapped. Stop acting like a victim. Zola's wedding is next month. Be mature about it. I stood there in silence, my heart breaking in slow motion. She turned away, already done with me, as if my pain was an inconvenience. That was the moment something inside me changed. The quiet, obedient daughter she used to control. She died right there in that living room. When I walked out of her house, the air felt colder, sharper. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just made a promise to myself. If they wanted to hide the truth, I'd make sure the whole world saw it. When Zola called to ask for my help with her engagement party, I almost laughed. After everything, she still had the nerve to ask me to plan the celebration for her and the man who'd broken me. But I said yes. I don't know why, maybe because I wanted to see how far they would go, or maybe because I needed one final reminder of who they really were. Either way, I told her I'd do it, and I promised myself it would be the last time I ever let them make me feel small. The following weeks were a blur of phone calls, color schemes, and fake smiles. Zola sent me photos of flower arrangements and dresses, asking for my opinion, pretending we were still close. Mom hovered in the background, gloating about her beautiful daughter's big day, as if she hadn't stabbed me with her words the last time we spoke. Malik, or Elliot, as everyone called him now, barely looked at me. When he did, his eyes were filled with guilt he tried to hide behind charm. It was almost pathetic watching him pretend. The night of the party came faster than I expected. The hotel ballroom sparkled with lights, champagne flowed, and Zola looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine. Everyone kept saying how perfect the couple looked together. I stood near the corner, pretending to be busy checking the seating chart, but really, I was just trying to breathe. Every time Malik's laughter echoed through the room, it felt like a knife twisting inside me. Mom floated around, soaking up compliments about her amazing daughters. When people praised me for helping organize, she smiled sweetly and said, "Well, Amara's always been good at staying behind the scenes." The words stung, but I stayed quiet. That was my strength. I'd learned silence could be sharper than any insult. Dinner was served, speeches followed, and for a moment, it almost seemed peaceful. But peace doesn't last in my family. When someone mentioned how different Zola and I were, Mom laughed too loudly and said, "Oh, Amara's just envious of her sister's success." The room went still. My heart dropped, but she didn't stop there. She's always been the jealous type. You can't blame her. Not everyone can shine. I could feel hundreds of eyes on me, the same humiliation I'd known since childhood burning my face. Zola didn't defend me. She just looked away. Malik sipped his drink like a coward. I swallowed hard, forcing the tears back, then turned and walked out before anyone could see me break. Outside, the cold air hit me, and that's when the tears came, hot, silent, endless. My mascara ran down my cheeks, but I didn't care. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Through clenched teeth, I whispered, "They'll regret this." And for the first time, I truly meant it. The morning after the party, I woke up with swollen eyes and a pounding head, but I wasn't sad anymore. I was angry, the kind of anger that burns slow and steady, the kind that makes you think clearly. I couldn't let it go. I needed to understand how everything had happened. How Malik had vanished from my life only to reappear under a new name, richer, smoother, and suddenly perfect for my sister. I started by going through the past. I searched Malik's company online, Elliot King Enterprises, a small but growing firm that handled marketing contracts. The founding date caught my eye. It was registered 5 years ago, the same year he disappeared. I scrolled further down the page and froze when I saw the initial investment listed under a business registry, Jonas Trust Account. My father's name. My heart stopped. My father had set up that account for both Zola and me before he died. It was supposed to be split evenly, our start in life. But how could Malik have accessed it? I didn't have the documents, but Mom did. She was the trustee after Dad's death. And suddenly it all made sense. For days, I couldn't eat or sleep. I visited the bank where Dad's account used to be. The clerk hesitated, but after I showed proof of identity, she quietly printed out old transaction records. There it was, a large withdrawal signed by Claudia Ndlova herself, transferred directly to Malik Okafor's account. My hands trembled as I stared at the paper. She had stolen my share and handed it to the man who destroyed me. I went home and sat in the dark, the documents spread out on my table. Every line felt like a betrayal etched in ink. Mom's signature. Malik's name. Zola's initials on a joint business account that followed. They'd all known. The three of them had built their perfect lives with the money my father left for me. I felt the anger rise inside me, hot and cold all at once. I remembered my mother's words. Don't ruin your sister's happiness because a man chose her over you. But this wasn't about jealousy anymore. This was theft. This was betrayal. This was my own family robbing me of my future, and then calling me bitter for surviving it. I took a deep breath and wiped my tears. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to fight them in the way they expected. No, I was going to expose them, every lie, every secret. I pulled out my laptop and started gathering everything. Financial records, old emails, messages from Malik. Each file was another piece of the truth they'd buried. For years, they had painted me as the jealous one. Now, I was the one holding all the evidence. And this time, I wouldn't be quiet. I didn't want their love anymore. I wanted justice. I didn't know where to start, so I went to the only person who ever stood up to my mother, my father's brother, Uncle Desmond. We hadn't spoken in years. Mom had cut him off after Dad's death, calling him a bad influence. But I remembered how he'd once told me, if you ever need the truth, come to me, not your mother. So I called him. He picked up on the second ring, his voice older but still sharp. When I told him what happened, about Malik, Zola, and the money, he didn't sound surprised. I warned Jonas about putting Claudia in charge, he muttered. She always wanted control. He told me to meet him at his small law office downtown. When I walked in, he was sitting behind a mountain of files, glasses hanging from his nose. I showed him everything, the bank records, the transfer forms, Malik's business registration. He studied them quietly, his jaw tightening. This is clear misappropriation, he finally said. And if Malik used these funds to start his company, that's fraud. Hearing those words made something in me shift. It wasn't just emotional anymore. This was real, legal, provable. Uncle Desmond promised to help me build a case. He began drafting letters, reaching out to financial institutions, digging into Malik's company history. For the first time, I felt like someone was on my side. But I didn't stop there. I started reaching out to people from Malik's business circle, quietly, carefully. I wanted to know who he really was beneath his new name. What I found made my stomach turn. There were whispers of unpaid debts, manipulated investors, and a charity fund that disappeared overnight. One woman told me Malik promised her partnership in a new venture, took her money, then ghosted her. He's a charming liar, she said bitterly. He always finds someone new to believe him. Each conversation revealed another thread of deceit, and every thread led back to Zola. Her name appeared on documents, event invitations, and photos with investors. It wasn't just that she knew, she was part of it. But why? I found the answer in a series of old text messages between them, recovered from a shared cloud backup I still had access to. Malik had promised her a new life full of luxury, and she had chosen to stay silent to protect that dream. My heart ached, but I wasn't surprised. That was Zola, the golden child who would trade truth for comfort, loyalty for luxury. By the end of that week, my apartment was covered in papers, sticky notes, and files. Every secret they'd buried had a string connecting it to another. And I had my fingers on all of them. I wasn't rushing. I was patient. Because when you've been dismissed your whole life, revenge isn't about shouting. It's about waiting for the perfect moment to pull the right string, and watching everything they built collapse. The chandeliers shimmered above the Grand Hotel ballroom, casting golden light on polished tables and expensive smiles. A month had passed since the first engagement party, the one where everything fell apart. But this time it was different. This time, I wasn't the broken girl in the corner. I was the calm before their storm. Zola's laughter echoed through the room as she posed for pictures beside Malik, her hand resting proudly on his chest. My mother floated nearby, wearing her favorite emerald gown, the same color as greed. The air reeked of wealth and pretense, champagne glasses clinking to the sound of empty congratulations. No one noticed me slip in through the side door. Uncle Desmond had warned me. "Are you sure you want to do this publicly?" he asked. I'd smiled. "They destroyed me in front of a crowd, Uncle. It's only fair the truth finds them the same way." I took a seat near the back, blending into the sea of sequins and designer perfumes. My heart thudded, but my face stayed serene. I watched Malik raise his glass, his voice smooth and practiced. "To new beginnings," he said, grinning at Zola. "To honesty, love, and family." That was my cue. I stood and walked toward the stage, my heels clicking like the countdown of fate. The crowd turned, whispers rising as I took the microphone from the host. Zola froze, the color draining from her face. Amara, she whispered. What are you doing? I smiled softly. Just returning the favor, sister. The room fell silent. I know many of you are here to celebrate love, I began, my voice steady. But what you don't know is that this engagement, this beautiful fairy tale, is built on theft, betrayal, and lies. Gasps rippled through the guests. I held up a folder. The documents Desmond helped me gather. Malik, or should I say Moses Adewale, has been living under a false identity. The company he claims to have built? Funded entirely by the inheritance my father left behind. Money my mother helped him steal. All eyes turned to my mother, whose trembling hand gripped her glass too tightly. Amara, stop this madness, she hissed. Oh, I'm just getting started. I projected the bank statements onto the ballroom screen. Transfers, dates, signatures, all there. Every cent you admired tonight came from deceit. Every diamond, every toast, every smile, all stolen. Malik's mask cracked. Zola's lips trembled as murmurs turned into judgmental stares. Someone in the crowd shouted, "Is this true?" And just like that, the room erupted, chaos wrapped in designer clothing. I stepped back, breathing in the moment, the collapse, the truth, the freedom. For the first time, it wasn't me drowning in shame. It was them. I placed the microphone down gently and whispered, "To honesty, love, and family." Then I walked away as their perfect world shattered behind me. The aftermath of that night was quiet, but it was deafening. Zola's engagement didn't survive the revelation. Malik, the man who had built his entire persona on lies, vanished almost immediately, leaving behind a trail of legal notices and angry investors. Within days, his company was frozen, his accounts investigated. No one could find him, and I felt a cold satisfaction knowing he would never slip back into my sister's life. Claudia, my mother, was a different story. The community had always looked up to her, praising her for raising perfect daughters. That illusion crumbled quickly. Friends stopped inviting her to social events. Neighbors whispered about her favoritism, her role in the theft, and her complicity in covering up Malik's fraud. She called me every day at first, begging me to retract my claims, to say it wasn't true. "Amara, please, I did what I thought was best," she would plead, voice breaking, but I stayed firm. "You taught me to stay silent," I told her once, my voice steady, my chest tight. "That was your mistake. It wasn't cruelty. It was justice." I had spent years being overlooked, ignored, and blamed for things I didn't do. This wasn't about revenge in the way people think. It was about reclaiming what was rightfully mine and holding them accountable for every secret they had buried. Uncle Desmond guided me through the next steps. With his legal expertise, we recovered my father's estate, all the investments that had been mismanaged or siphoned off. Each property, each account, each small inheritance that should have been mine was returned. The process was long and meticulous, but every document I signed felt like a small victory. Proof that patience and persistence could undo years of manipulation. Zola moved away shortly after, her pride shattered. She rented a small apartment far from Atlanta, far from the life she had flaunted. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she avoided social media, rarely spoke to anyone from our old circle, and even kept her engagement ring hidden. I didn't feel joy at her downfall, just relief that the toxic web she and Malik had spun could no longer reach me. Mom stayed behind, alone in her mansion, her emerald dresses hanging untouched in the closet. The laughter and admiration she had thrived on were gone, replaced by silence and regret. I knew she would never admit her mistakes publicly, but that didn't matter anymore. Her power over me had ended. As for me, I breathed differently. I didn't celebrate with champagne or a party. I simply walked through the estate, feeling the weight lift from my shoulders. The house, the accounts, the small victories, they were symbols of something larger. My independence, my strength, and my refusal to let anyone define my worth. Life continued, quieter now, but steadier. I had reclaimed my name, my inheritance, and most importantly, my voice. The storm had passed, leaving me unshaken, unafraid, and finally free. Months had passed since the chaos of the engagement party, since the lies were exposed and the secrets laid bare. Life had settled into a quiet rhythm. But today, I felt the need to return to where it all began, my father's grave. The cemetery was peaceful, the kind of stillness that made you feel both small and infinite at the same time. I walked slowly along the paths, my heels crunching softly on the gravel, until I reached the headstone that bore his name, Jonas Ndlovu. I knelt down and ran my fingers over the engraved letters, tracing the familiar curves as if I could feel his presence through the cold stone. My chest tightened, and a lump formed in my throat. "Dad," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "I wish you had seen all of this. I wish you had been here to see me standing up for myself, for everything you wanted for me." The wind picked up slightly, rustling the leaves around the grave. I closed my eyes and let the memories flood in, his quiet encouragements, the little notes he used to leave for me, the nights he stayed up helping me with homework while Mom ignored my efforts. It had been his belief in me that had carried me this far, even when my own family tried to break me. I took a deep breath and let it out slowly, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. I didn't come here to mourn or to regret. I came to say thank you. Thank you for teaching me strength, for teaching me patience, for teaching me that silence can be more powerful than a scream. I looked around the cemetery, the sun breaking through a layer of clouds, casting golden light across the tombstones. There was a serenity here that I hadn't felt in years. I realized something profound. I was finally at peace. Not because I had destroyed Zola, Malik, or Mom, but because I had taken back what was mine. My father's estate, my dignity, my voice, all reclaimed. I didn't need anyone else's approval anymore, and that was freedom. I whispered one last thing, a reflection I hoped he could hear. Sometimes revenge isn't about making them suffer. It's about no longer needing their approval. That truth resonated deeply inside me. I had spent years trying to earn their recognition, their love, their validation. Now I didn't need it. I was enough. Standing up, I brushed my hands against my skirt and looked once more at his grave. The sunlight hit my face, warm and gentle, as if acknowledging the journey I had taken. I turned toward the exit, walking slowly, deliberately, feeling lighter with every step. As I left the cemetery, the wind carried a sense of new beginnings. The clouds parted further, sunlight spilling across the landscape, and I knew I had won something far greater than material wealth or revenge. I had won myself. And in that quiet victory, I finally felt whole. Here's a fully reworded version for your story. What do you think? Did Amara do the right thing by standing up to her family and reclaiming her life, or should she have tried to forgive and stay? I really want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If stories like this inspire you, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new tale.